Insight is not healing. Okay, let me just say that again. Insight is not healing. You know you're anxiously attached. You could give a TED talk on it. Okay, you've read Attached, you've read The Body Keeps the Score, you've done therapy. Shoot, maybe you've even done years of it. You can trace your patterns back to your childhood with the precision of a forensic investigator. You can clock another person's attachment style before the appetizers even arrive. Okay, and yet you're still spiraling when he takes 4 hours to text back. Okay, you're still over functioning to earn love that should be freely given. You're still somehow in the exact same dynamic with a slightly different face. So here's the question. You got to ask yourself, if understanding your patterns was actually enough to change them, wouldn't you be free by now? Okay, you're not broken. You're not self-sabotaging. Okay, and you're definitely not lazy. High-achieving women are the last people on earth who can be accused of not trying hard enough. Okay, you have just been sold a quiet lie, the lie that insight equals healing. False. Okay, it doesn't. Okay, and today I want to show you through the actual neuroscience why understanding your wound and healing your wound are two different jobs run by two different systems. Once you see this, the last few years of doing the work will finally make sense to you. By the way, my name is Cody. I've got a degree in cognitive neuroscience. I'm trained in a trauma therapy called internal family systems, and I study this stuff for a freaking living, baby. Over 1 million women trust me to help them navigate breakups and heartbreak, to prepare them for modern dating, because I say the hard things, but I do it with love and I do it with science. Okay, so let's dive into this thing. So where does your attachment wound even actually live? Okay, so the first thing we got to talk about is that an attachment wound is a kind of trauma. It's not always dramatic, not the capital T kind always, right? But often it's more slow, it's quiet. Okay, a parent who loved you but couldn't attune to you, a caregiver whose moods you had to monitor, affection that came and went on a schedule you couldn't predict. Most people don't understand that trauma is not defined by the event, it's defined by the experience. Okay, so think of a house fire. The same fire that traumatizes the homeowner who watches their life turn to ash doesn't traumatize the firefighter walking directly into the fire on purpose. Okay, same event, completely different nervous systems, roles, and reference points though. So in other words, a completely different effect. Okay, event, experience, effect. That's the big 3 E's. It's why your sibling can shrug off the exact same childhood that wounded you. You weren't too sensitive. You experienced it differently, and your nervous system organized itself around what you lived through, not anyone else, okay? And a lot of this organizing happened before you even had words. Your attachment template was largely laid down in the first few years of your life, pre-verbal, pre-memory, pre-story. It got encoded in your body and your nervous system long before the thinking, talking part of your brain came fully online, okay? Listen to that again. This means that the wound was probably installed before language, before you even had a sense of yourself. So when you sit down years later and try to talk your way out of it, you're using a tool that can't reach the place the wound is stored. And that's not a you problem, that's an architecture problem. Yes, my dear friend, that does mean we're about to dive into some deep neuroscience on this. So buckle up, okay? If you've been on the relationship mental health side of social media in the last few years, you've probably heard the terms top down and bottom up, okay? And unfortunately, it is usually two people who think that one is better than the other for healing, yelling at one another. But before we debate this, where do these terms even come from? Between your ears, baby, between your freaking ears, they're actually neuroscience terms, specifically the two direction your brain processes information. Top down processing means using knowledge already in your head to shape what you perceive. Predictive processing theory talks a ton about this, okay? The easiest way to understand this is a demonstration, okay? So look at this picture on the screen, okay? What shape do you see, right? Can you see the cube? This is really a picture of black circles with lines in them, not a cube. But it's almost impossible not to see the cube. Why? Top-down processing. You have background knowledge and reference frames for a cube in your mind already, so your brain creates the cube inside the image with this knowledge, okay? That's top-down processing, a really simple example. Bottom-up processing is the exact opposite, okay? So here is another demo. Look at this picture, okay? Unless you happen to be an airline pilot, when you look at this picture, you have to analyze all its parts with your senses. As you do this, you start to build a construct in your mind about what its different parts and what they all might do, because none of it means anything to you right now. You have no top-down reference frame to go to bring forward. You have to bring in the information. So bottom up means going from your senses, your body collects, up to your brain. Sensation first and then meeting. You need both though. Neither is better, but they are definitely not interchangeable when it comes to healing. Okay, so let's talk about why not. So What's any of this have to do with healing? It's a great question. I love that question. And when you're thinking about this in relation to therapy and healing, the mind, the brain, the body, I find this picture super, super helpful. I share this with all of my clients. The three parts of us, right, are separate but inseparable. The mind, the brain, the body. They all affect each other. Each one is soil for the next. The body is where emotion is generated, stored, and felt. The brain is the wiring connecting everything. And the mind is the voice in your head, your thoughts, your stories, your insight. The body holds the brain holds the mind, which means the body is the soil for the brain and the brain is the soil for the mind. It's a little oversimplified, without a doubt, but it's the most helpful map you'll ever get for what we're about to talk about. Neuroscientists don't generally think of the mind, the brain, and the body as separate things. I find, as far as metaphors and analogies and helping people understand and take action on science, it is helpful to kind of conceptualize them as in their own little domains while understanding they are interconnected. That's why I say separate but inseparable all the time when I describe this, because I'm really trying my hardest to navigate what neuroscience says and suggests and what helps the general public and people take action on this information so they can improve their lives and improve their mental health, date better, healthy relationships, all this stuff. Okay. So again, a little oversimplified, but again, it is one of the best things in a very useful map for what we're about to talk about. Okay. Because using this map, you can now think of therapeutic modalities in two ways, right? You guessed it, top down and bottom up. Top down approaches work with the mind. Okay. They help you talk through, reframe, and reprocess your thoughts, memories, and beliefs. Think cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, dialectic behavioral therapy, cognitive processing therapy, most talk therapy, psychoanalytic therapies, things like that. Okay. And let's be honest, every self-help book, podcast, and Instagram carousel you probably ever consumed, top-down, information-based. Okay. Bottom-up approaches work with the body first. Okay. They settle the nervous system, fertilizing the soil. Okay. So the brain can actually heal, which then heals the mind because now your thoughts are growing in healthier ground. And here's the part you probably don't want to hear. You likely have been doing mostly top-down work on a bottom-up wound. You've been renovating the attic while the foundation is cracked. No wonder it never holds, okay? So why are we so obsessed with insight anyways? Well, for decades, clinicians and scientists genuinely believed you could think your way out of a trauma response, okay? Talk about it enough, understand it enough, and you'll be free. It's why the earliest trauma treatments were almost all top-down, right? Then in the late 90s, early 2000s or so, neuroimaging got good, baby, real good. And the picture that came back was sobering. Research began to suggest that simply recalling and talking about trauma without the body feeling safe first tends to do three things, right? It spikes the amygdala, which is the brain's threat system. That's no bueno. It quiets the prefrontal cortex, the calm thinking, perspective taking part of you. Surprise, surprise, that's an important part of healing. And then it can intensify symptoms. It can re-traumatize you, in other words. Anxiety, shutdown, that hollow dread, all of that can come back. So let's just sit with that for a second. This essentially means that talking about your wound when you're not regulated can hand the microphone to the alarm and mute the adult. And it gets worse, okay? Because the hippocampus, this is your brain's librarian, essentially, where your memories are stored, created, stored, and pushed into your neocortex. The part that it's supposed to file these memories into coherent stories, right? But in relation to traumatic moments or dysregulation, it partially goes offline, right? Especially during overwhelming experiences. So the memory never got filed properly in the first place. Okay? It's stored in implicit memory, emotional memory, body memory, sensory memory, okay? That's why a song, a smell, or a certain tone of voice even can drop you straight into a feeling you can't explain. The wound isn't a filing cabinet you can search with words. It's in the walls. Okay. It's the reason your insight never reached the wound. Okay. You were searching the wrong floor of the building, dude. One more bit of research I find relevant to this conversation is your vagus nerve is a highway connecting your body and your brain. It's like a superhighway for your nervous system, okay? And the traffic is not balanced, people. Roughly 80% of its fibers carry signals up body to brain. Only about 20% carry signals down brain to body, okay? This is a very interesting concept. And honestly, a lot of influencers and things like that, somatic people want to tell you that 80% of your entire nervous system does this. It's not true. The research is very clear that it's your vagus nerve that this is true for. So just a little heads up there, myth busting. So on one of, the important part about this though is on one of your nerve system's biggest information highways, the body is doing most of the talking. The brain is mostly listening. So when your strategy is think better thoughts to feel better, you're not wrong to try. That 20% is real, but you're sending instructions down a lane that is 4 times narrower than the one your body is shouting up through. Okay. Sometimes it works. Mostly it just exhausts you. Okay. That's not a confidence problem. That is a nervous system doing exactly what it was built to do. Okay, Cody. So what on earth do I do about this? I'm so glad you asked. Let's get practical. Okay. Because there's some good news. You don't have to throw away every single thing that you've learned. All that insight isn't wasted. It's just been waiting for a foundation to stand on, okay? You don't need more understanding. You need a different order of operations. Good old PEMDAS. We're going to do PEMDAS for healing in relationships here, okay? There's a 3-step sequence. Bottom up first, top down second. All right, so step 1, you got to settle the body before you touch the story, okay? Here's the rule. Regulation before reprocessing. Always. Not sometimes. Always, okay? Before you analyze the spiral, the text, the dynamic, get your nervous system back inside its window of tolerance, okay? Slow your exhales. So a longer out breath than an in breath. Put your feet on the ground and actually feel them. Put your hands on your chest. Orient to the room. Actually look around. Let your body register that you are right now safe. You're not in trouble, okay? This isn't a calm down cliche, okay? You're physically bringing your prefrontal cortex back online so it can do its job, right? You cannot reframe a thought with a brain that's stuck in threat. You got to settle first and just think for a second. Just bring it down, okay? Step number 2 is you got to build some interoception. Interoception is your ability to sense what's happening inside your body. It's the muscle that's been underused while you lived in your head. So practice daily when nothing is wrong. Where do I feel this in my body right now? What's the actual sensation? Tight, buzzy, heavy, hollow. Name the sensation, not the story, okay? These are really, really small reps. They're boring. They're unsexy even. And they're how you build the bottom-up channel that lets real change travel. Okay. And then step number 3, bringing in the top down, bring in the insight and let the story update itself. Okay. This is where your top down work finally pays off. Once the body is settled and you can feel yourself, revisit the old belief. I'm too much. Love isn't safe. I have to earn it while staying regulated. Okay. Hold the old story and a new true experience at the same time. I am safe right now. I am an adult. I have choices my younger self never had. Okay. When an old emotional memory gets reactivated gently alongside contradicting experiences, the brain can actually rewrite it. It can lay over new experiences, okay? Not just bury it under a better argument top down, okay? That's the difference between insight that decorates the wound and insight that closes it. Very big difference. Insight is in both of them, but very, very big difference. Speaking of closing wounds, if you've ever wondered why I do not shut up about IFS, right? This is why, okay? If you've been following me for a while, you probably saw this coming. You know I'm obsessed with IFS, and now you know why. For years, I understood how important the sequence of bottom up then top down was, but I didn't understand how to integrate those things. And I had to basically duct tape modalities together to achieve this. Okay. And then I learned about internal family systems, IFS, and something clicked that I have not been able to unsee ever since. Okay. IFS isn't just another modality. It's really like an operating system. Every other approach tends to live on one floor. Talk therapy works in the mind, somatic therapy works in the body. They're both good, but IFS holds the whole building at one time. It goes bottom up, finding the part in your body first. It's the first thing that we ask when we work with people. Okay. A sense, a tightness, a buzz, a heaviness. You don't analyze it, you sense it. That's somatic. That's regulation. Then it goes top down as you get curious about what that part's story is, what it believes, what it's afraid would happen if it didn't do its job. And then you update it with new information from your adult self. Okay. That's meaning making. That's narrative work. And the thing that holds it all together is the self, this capital S self, that calm, curious, compassionate presence underneath all your parts. Self energy is a regulated nervous system. And self is also the one wise enough to witness the wound and reparent it. Okay. It allows you to map your inner world. Okay. The IFS model even sorts your patterns and protective mechanisms into top down and bottom up groupings. Okay. Your managers, the anxious planner, the overfunctioning, the controlling, those are top down protectors. The firefighters, the spiral, the impulse, the 2 a.m. text. Those are bottom-up reactors, okay? And underneath both of them are your exiles, the young wounded parts holding the original pain that everyone else is working overtime to keep you from feeling. All these other parts are trying to keep you safe from it. You're not a mess. You are a system, a beautifully organized system around this old wound with a self at the center that has never actually been damaged. It just got crowded out. All these other parts took over. That's not a technique. That's a way of being. So if you wanted something that blends all of what we've been talking about instead of just having to duct tape it together, that is where I would point you, okay? And keep the description if you want the IFS directory so you can find someone who's trained in IFS near you. The directory is free. Just click on it and go find somebody near you if you're interested in this kind of work, okay? You're never failing at the work, right? You were doing the right work in the wrong order, leading with the mind when the body needed to go first. Insight was never going to be the thing that healed you, but it was never useless either, okay? It's the map. The body work is the territory. On the other side of this, though, the spiral loses its grip. The panic gets quieter and the love that's actually good for you stops feeling boring or suspicious and starts to feel like something your nervous system can finally receive. All right, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button so you never miss a video. And if you want to go deeper on any of these topics, you would love my Substack. I'll put a link in the description for you to check that out, right? I believe in you. You got this. Have an awesome one. Peace.